deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. RTL True Crime, unraveling the web of evil. No stone left unturned, we dive into the prime. Yeah, we digging up the dirt, bringing justice to the crime. RTL True Crime, unveiling dark realities every time. Yeah, LTL True Crime, we going deep in the dark. Peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. Never get thought of your thought, and don't look at the books. LTL True Crime, go. We gon' get live in the shine, but then I'm not talking, baby, it ain't so. People go put in the world, no can to wait your life. Good now, to wait your love, we thought of your thought, yeah, we get thought of your thought, and don't look at the books. RTL True Crime, we go with dark realities every time. This is RTL True Crime, we go with dark realities every time. Yeah, RTL True Crime, we going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. RTL True Crime, we going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. RTL True Crime, we going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi.
Mary, it's so funny that you said that. I'm going to bring this up really quick. She says it's been a while since we've done BK stuff. It has been a while, and I knew that I had to come back to this. It's probably why people are like, "Why is he doing this content tonight?" But it is a case. We've followed the Idaho 4 case. We've been following that here on this channel for close to a year. And I had to come back to it tonight and do some review and get everybody caught up. I'm sure that you all are all more caught up on this if you've been following the Idaho 4 case than I have been, because my life has been consumed since September, deep into the Karen Reed case. And we've been doing a lot of amazing work there. And, you know, it's kind of like an old familiar friend, I guess. I don't really want to call Bryan Kohberger a friend or, you know, that particular situation, but obviously, you know, we've kind of come back around to it. But I want to welcome everybody into LTL True Crime. Thanks for hanging out here on, geez, what night are we? Wednesday night. It's February 7, 2024, and a nice kind of laid back stream tonight. We get to kind of hang out, and I appreciate everybody being over here. Again, you know, I follow different cases. I don't just do Karen Reed all the time. And when that case concludes, we will move on to other things as well. And that's why I'm been doing some more of these off streams to reintroduce that type of content back here and follow things that I've been following and giving some attention to it. So I get it. You know, it may not grab everybody's attention, but it's something that I'm super passionate about. And, you know, cases will continue. What we do as far as certain cases are moments in time, and they will move on, and we may get the conclusion we want, and we may not get the conclusion we want. And if it's something that we're passionate about, we don't get the conclusion we don't want, we fight for, we push forward, we continue to talk about it and help in any possible way. But it's a fascinating story, very interesting. A lot of things have changed over the last couple of weeks in the Idaho 4 case and last couple months. And like I said, I wanted to come back and revisit this because it has been quite a while. So welcome in, everybody. Thank you for all being here on these off streams. And, you know, we'll get into it. The first video that I want to play tonight, and you're all going to find this fascinating if you have been followers of the Idaho 4 case. And if you haven't, then maybe this is something new that I can open up to you. But I recently was watching, and of course, I'm getting the worst cramp in my foot right now. Hang on one second. Oh. I literally just got the worst cramp in my foot, and I was like, I gotta stand up. Sorry about that. But I wanted to bring this up. I recently have been following a story of a woman, I believe in New York City, 27-year-old woman, an artist, a creator, that was brutally unalived outside her home. And the suspect, I believe, is an ex-boyfriend. But I want to play this clip because this is going to sound very familiar to the people that have been following the Idaho 4 case. And listen to this. It's eerily similar to Bryan Kohberger when Bryan Kohberger was caught. And I want you all to listen. I want you all to listen here. Check this out. So this is going to talk about a process. It's going to talk about when this subject was caught. Listen to this, friends. Listen to this. Eerily similar to Bryan Kohberger.
In plain view that further connect him in a evidentiary way to the crime scene itself. So,
well, I should tell you, when they found him, he was wearing latex gloves. And
when they found him, he was wearing latex gloves. And guess what he was doing to his car? Listen to this. I'm going to rewind a little bit.
I should tell you, when they found him, he was wearing latex gloves and was apparently cleaning his car, and they smelled bleach in this puddle that was near the car.
He was cleaning his car with bleach. Who did that? Who did that in the Idaho 4 case? Anybody that's following this, type it in the chat. He was they found him wearing latex gloves. They found Bryan Kohberger. Well, when they apprehended him in Pennsylvania, what was he wearing? Latex gloves. What was he doing? Separating his trash. What did they say that he was doing to his car? Cleaning it with bleach. Cleaning it with bleach. So I found this to be a very odd parallel. We'll go back and listen one more time here.
In an evidentiary way to the crime scene itself. So,
well, I should tell you, when they found him, he was wearing latex gloves and was apparently cleaning his car, and they smelled bleach in this puddle that was near the car.
Yeah, on homicide, we call that a clue, right? So,
yeah.
And a lot of this is timing, of course. I mean, and this is what I've said. When an investigation like this gets going, it just rocks and rolls until you get to the end of it, and at least in terms of getting a suspect in custody. And
all right, so I just wanted to play that a little bit, and I just found that kind of funny. It's just like, oh wow, kind of sounds like Bryan Kohberger. And also we had some updates from the Gonzalez family. Some new details came out as to how Kaylee was found, and I'll play this 2-minute clip. This is from ABC in Chicago.
We're just left in limbo.
This morning, Kaylee Gonzalez's parents sharing exclusively with GMA never before seen pictures and videos of their 21-year-old daughter.
There's a type of, you can like season with these. I can't really season with them, but you can cook with them.
Yeah, I know that's in front of the tower.
Yeah.
This is in front of the University of Idaho Tower.
Mm-hmm. The family still waiting on a full digital copy of Kaylee's phone from authorities.
These are the last moments of your child's life, and you're sitting here fighting with somebody who just doesn't care.
They were able to collect some of Kaylee's belongings from the university over the summer, which raised concerns for them about how well possible evidence was processed, including a trash can from Kaylee's room that was full and appeared untouched.
We opened it. It was a little squeezy applesauce thing that you would give to like a toddler. Yeah. It did not appear to have been gone through.
Police saying they had gathered more than 100 pieces of physical evidence from the scene, along with some 4,000 photos and 3D scans of the residence. Still, frustration mounting for the family over what they consider a lack of communication and a rush to tear down the home on King Road. Christy describes for the first time how Kaylee was found.
And, before we get into that too, I think this is going to be a huge mistake. And I've, I think the last time that I did any streams on Idaho 4 and Bryan Kohberger was when they actually demolished the house. And I still think that's going to come back to bite them in the ass when they go this to trial. I still think that house is a crucial piece of evidence. I've talked about this. When you take down when a crucial piece of evidence like that house, I mean, everything happened inside that house. You cannot recreate that. I mean, you can look at a two-dimensional photo, but you're not going to get the 3 dimensions. And I get it. They went in, they scanned it. They can get a 3-dimensional scan. But as I said, when you sit in a room, the way, and I've talked about this, the way that my bedroom is acoustically set up, with the way that this room is shaped, the way that the insulation inside the walls, that this room only has that acoustic. If I walk into my living room, that room is going to be different. It's going to sound different. It's going to feel different in that room. And you can, I don't know. I feel my environments. I've been in this room for quite a few years, so I know what this environment feels like. You can't get that in a recreation by video or a 3D scan or photos. You will never be able to do that. And I would have liked the opportunity for jury to walk through that and feel what it felt like to be inside that home. We found out that the bedrooms are very small, and you're going to hear about that. Unfortunately, when Christy and Steve describe how Kaylee was found, that bedroom was small. She was trapped. She had to fight. And I think it would have been a very good thing for the jury to walk through that and see, the time. It's been debated 8 or 15 minutes that the accused killer, Bryan Kohberger, had to walk through this or run through this scene and do this. It might have given them a different perspective of how short the steps were, how close the rooms were together, how small the bedrooms. Again, I just don't think this can be recreated, and it sucks. It sucks. I understand, and we've talked about this before. When you take furniture out, things sound different. It's not going to bounce. It's going to, I have photos on my wall. I have a mirror. It's going to absorb that sound, but still gives you the opportunity to walk through and get a feeling for that environment. So we'll play through here and listen to the Gonzalez family.
It's my understanding Kaylee was kind of sitting up and had fought.
Yeah. And the way that room's put together, if you come through that door, you can't get out of that room.
Completely, totally trapped.
Yeah. You're in
Tiny,
a bed.
tiny room. The bed was the entire room. You could barely open up the door without swiping the foot of the bed. And it was wall. The headboard was up against the wall. The side where Kaylee was on was up against the wall. And if you can imagine Kaylee in an upright sort of position, up in the corner, slumped. I mean, she was trapped.
The home on King Road was torn down in the pre-dawn hours of December 28th.
It's crazy. Wild stuff. Something that I would never want to experience with my child. And the horror that family is going to have to go through for the rest of their life, the horror of the 4 families that will have to go through for the rest of their life, and now we know, and we're going to talk about this a little later in the program. Kohberger files the petition to move this out of Latah County. He wants a change of venue. So again, it's another step in delaying this, not moving it forward. They're saying, 2025, it may be longer than that. And the thing that scares me about this, and I'm glad that I've done this stream because this has been in the back of my mind too. And I almost think that the defense is doing this on purpose. Well, I know they're doing this on purpose, because what happens when you delay a trial? What happens to witnesses when you delay a trial? Okay. What happens to witnesses when you delay a trial? Their memories fade. They may not remember certain things. They may not remember certain details. They may not remember what they saw or what they heard. And that is very important to keep those things fresh. And we've heard about this, in the past with cases where things get delayed 2, 3, 4 years to trial, and people forget what it might have been that night, or what it felt like, or what they heard, or what they saw. So this is a delay tactic by the defense to stretch out memories of people and get them to most likely forget details that happened on that night. Did you see him? I don't know. Did you hear anything? I don't know. You know, I mean, shit, I can't remember what I did a month ago. How am I going to remember, how am I going to remember what I'm going to do, what I did 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Your memory fades as time moves on. People forget. 1,000% people forget. Let's pull up the super chat. Micro Kimmy, nice to see you. She says, I hope justice comes from the families and the victims sooner than later. I'm confident the judge is aware that Ann Taylor's delay tactics and won't allow her to continue. Also, Beard's looking sharp on you. Thank you. I appreciate it. But, this is what they're doing. It's another delay tactic. That's what I talked about. Is the defense now turning the tides where we had all this pro prosecution? Are they now finding a way to twist the system a little bit? They tried going back and calling for case law back in 1700s, 1800s, tried using that tactic and going back. They delayed motions. They delayed hearings. They delayed evidence. And now they're doing this change of venue. And, all these motions for discovery. So again, are they now going to run their full course of, what they can do as far as motions, what they can do as far as hearings? It's going to probably get to a certain point where they can't anymore, and it's going to have to go to trial. But I don't even feel like this is going to be 2025. This could be 2026, spring of 2026. And it sucks. It sucks for these families because they're not, they got to keep living through this. And they're at different stages of grieving. There's different stages of grieving. They're still in a major grieving process. But hopefully, if this gets to an end and a resolution, they can start to move on. And I'm not saying that they'll ever move on from the memories of their dead children, but I'm saying they'll be able to kind of let this fall, not have that anxiety of a trial, Okay. So let's do this. I have, so we heard about the ruling on the DNA evidence. I'm going to play something here from Law and Crime Network. It's going to talk about the concrete ruling on the DNA evidence here. Let me pull this up and play through this from the Law and Crime Network.
Bryan Kohberger's defense attorneys can now review some potentially key DNA evidence in the case against the accused murderer. We break down the judge's ruling with law professor Jules Epstein. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. All right, so we have an update for you in the Bryan Kohberger case. And the question is, how big of a deal is it? What do we make of it? Now, to recap, Bryan Kohberger is the Washington State University grad student accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students back in November of 2022. Ethan Chapin, Zana Kernodle, Haley Gonsalves, and Madison Mogan. They were all found stabbed to death inside of a large off-campus rental house at the University of Idaho. There was a massive police investigation as basically the entire Moscow Police Department started looking for who did this. And after this massive investigation, about 6 weeks after the murders, authorities arrested then 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger at his parents' home in Pennsylvania, where he was spending Christmas break. They extradited him back to Idaho. They charged him with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary. A grand jury looked over the evidence that prosecutors collected and officially indicted Bryan Kohberger on the charges. And the state has announced that it will be seeking the death penalty. Now, while a trial date hasn't been set yet, we are moving towards an actual trial. In fact, prosecutor Bill Thompson has asked for it to be set for this summer. We'll wait and see if that actually happens. But one of the central issues in this case, one of the key pieces of evidence that we have talked about extensively here on Sidebar is DNA, right? Because that DNA from a knife sheath left behind at the crime scene is linked to Bryan Kohberger. Authorities were able to make a familial match of the DNA to Kohberger's father. They did this by collecting trash from outside the Kohberger's home in Pennsylvania. Then after Kohberger was arrested, authorities took a cheek swab from him. The court documents reveal that the DNA recovered from the sheath is an almost identical match to Kohberger. Well, now the defense may have been given a win. Maybe. For that, let me bring in Jules Epstein, Edward D. Allbaum Professor of Law at Temple University Beasley School of Law, our resident evidence expert here on Sidebar. So good to see you. I think this is going to be the last one that I say Happy New Year. I've said it. It's already, what is it? It's already in the middle of January, but I'm going to give you my final Happy New Year. Happy New Year, sir.
And back to you, and hopefully a great new year for everybody.
I hope so too. So I'm happy to talk to you about this because, and let me just give everybody a preamble here. We know that Kohberger's defense team for months has been asking the prosecution to turn over DNA records. The
100K is going to be a long ways away from me, but I appreciate the enthusiasm, Dave. Thank you. I got a long way to go. Long way to go. I have some ideas, though. I've been thinking about some things and some things to improve the channel. If any of my Karen Reed Turtle Boy followers are in the room, I actually talked to Aiden tonight before I came on live. That's why it was taking me a little while to get over here. He's doing great. He's in high spirits. Him and I talked about some future shows. We have some ideas. More coming soon on that. And, it's just, YouTube is an interesting thing. There's some cases that get really hot and your channel gets hot for a while. And there's cases that aren't so hot, streams that you will do. I'm still navigating my way through this platform. I appreciate the people that are the Turtle Boy and the Karen Reed followers that will watch me on the off night streams. I have to think of the future. I always think ahead. I'm always thinking ahead. So I don't want to ever get caught in a position where something concludes and you're kind of dead in the water and you go, what do I do next? I'm always thinking a month or two ahead. So we have some plans. He's doing really well. He's excited about the SJC filing. He was laughing at the response from Mello. He's hoping some good things happen either tomorrow or Friday, but it's all going to remain in the in the justice system, and hopefully it works in his favor. But he's excited. He's excited. He wants to get out. Obviously, it's been a long 60+ day. Close to almost 45 days, and hopefully he will be out soon. So, like I said, when that all happens, we have some things that are planned. We've been kicking around some ideas. I think it's going to be great. And I don't want to spoil it too much, but stay tuned. Stay tuned. Some things will happen. As far as my platform, again, I'm still navigating the way around this. I'm still very new. And, we just continue to find our way through this path. And I may not do true crime forever. I don't know. Things always change. Life changes. So, but here we are. We're here tonight, and I appreciate the support. All right, let's keep playing.
Materials that were held by the FBI and this private lab, Othram, that apparently performed the DNA tests in the case. Prosecution fought back on this, saying they didn't have access to the records because they were in the custody of the FBI. They said they never saw them. And they even requested a protective order. The judge in this case, John Judge, that's his name, reviewed the materials, and he has ordered the prosecution that they have to turn over to the defense some DNA records about investigative genetic genealogy used in the case. Again, namely how the material was entered into a public.
And I think people should really be interested in this case, because I think this is going to be used for future DNA references or future DNA, how DNA is collected and used in cases. It's going to be a big case. This is going to be a super, super big case. And I think it's going to change a lot of things in the law, or just the way that investigative tactics, procedures happen in cases. This is going to set a lot of new things in cases. The way DNA is collected, the way DNA is presented. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be wrapped really around the DNA in this. And that's really the thing that pops up a lot in this case.
Genealogy database. The court said the court has now completed its review of the information provided by the state and orders the state to discover to the defense a portion of the IgG information. With all of that, what do you think?
It may be much ado about nothing. Let me try and tell you why. what you called familial DNA searching is
So I'm going to actually give you kind of my thing on this. The bottom line is this unit, and again, we may not agree, okay? And obviously we're not going to agree. The bottom line is this, and I know that the defense does not have to explain for this, but here's the issue. You have a knife sheath that is in the bed with 2 dead victims, and the suspect's DNA is on that knife sheath. How did that DNA get there? He had to have touched it in some way, and you can't turn around and go, he was framed. You have to explain, how did his DNA get there? And it's not just like touched, it was like skin cells in the button snap. And then you have all this other coincidental evidence. I mean, he was filmed on the street. His path that night, his car is filmed going by the house. He was in the area 16 times before that. We know that they I'm trying to think of the words. We know that they collected evidence from Instagram, all their social media contacts, their emails, phone numbers. I mean, I'm telling you, there's gonna be some type of connection, and that's the thing here that we sit back and we want to know: how did this all start? What was the initial connection, and obviously what happened on that night? But what was the initial contact? And it's gonna all come out. It's all gonna come out in court. But I think it was some type of social media contact. And we've heard a lot about Instagram, and we heard a lot about him following these particular individuals on Instagram, at least 1 or 2 of the girls on Instagram, Kaylee and so
means to an end. In other words, it's an investigation.
That's what you have to look at.
And so it's
I just dropped the video. Kaylee and Maddie.
criteria, so to speak. Is it close to anybody's? Okay, it's close to Dad. Well, we know Dad wasn't there. Who's Dad related to? Son. And then, as you put it, they got the confirmatory DNA. So this is a complaint about, how did you get me? Not, am I the guy? If I'm correct on that, unless they're...
So you just made my point. You said it's a movable object. It was found on brass button snap. DNA only lasts on brass for 4 to 12 hours. So that tells me that he touched that knife sheath. You just actually proved your own point. So within 4 to 12 hours, he touched that knife sheath, if that's going to be your theory. And DNA actually lasts a little bit longer than that. We've done shows on it. In a properly controlled environment, I think that the longest that it can stretch out is like 8 or 9 days. So you actually just prove your own theory, because you just said it's a movable object. It was found on a brass button snap, and the DNA only lasts. So that means that he had to have touched that knife within 4 to 12 hours before those people were dead, killed, and murdered. So kind of just proved your own point. Okay, let's keep playing.
Other DNA records that raise problems.
Yes, I do.
Issues are not what will...
I'm going to tell you, if you never have felt a K-bar knife, you can go out to your local Army Navy store, put one of those in your hands. It is an absolute killing machine. That's what it's made for. Marines use them. Navy uses them. It's extremely sharp, and it would not take much to even just take pressure force and just push it like that right through my hand. That's how easy that is. That's how easy it is.
The jury here, because juries don't normally hear about
in that house. He knew the layout of the house. He knew where to start, and he knew where to go. So I think he actually had been in the house before. If not, he knew from real estate postings. That's all going to come out, because they're going to get all the search history. It'll all come out in court.
Cousins in the database or whatever. The issue is, can I, the defendant, challenge that in some way? You violated my privacy, or my family's privacy, or the privacy of other people. or you violated some state law, because 1 or 2 states ban familial searching. I don't believe that to be the case in this state. So the problem Bryan will face, assuming I'm correct, is that his privacy rights are not really violated when you're looking in a database and finding his father's DNA. So I'm not sure where they're going to go with this. The only other thing I can think of is sort of a garbage in, garbage out argument, that they got the wrong information in this intergenerational search, that somehow polluted everything else. But to me, it doesn't answer, once you arrest him and you take that cheek swab and you match it to the sheath, how we got there.
So Kimmy says, I'm curious to know if any of those same doorbell cameras picked up Bryan those other times prior to November 13th, because if they track his phone, you know they went back and looked at the past footage. 1,000%. 1,000%. 1,000%. And I'm sure they do. And I'm sure that they don't have them just on video there. I mean, JLR is, if you watch his channel all, has been in and around that area. There's cameras everywhere around there. I mean, 64 terabytes of information that they have in this case. That's either going to be video footage, it's going to be photos, it's going to be anything, documents, anything, Google searches. I mean, just put it here. And I forgot here. Let's see. 1 terabyte. Let's just put it this way. 1 terabyte gives you the option of storing roughly 250,000 photos taken with a 12 megapixel camera, or 250 movies, or 500 hours of HD video, or 6.5 million document pages, commonly stored as office files, PDFs, and presentations. That's just 1 terabyte. That's what will be stored on 1 terabyte. They have 64 terabytes in this case. That's a lot of information. That's a lot of information. So keep that in mind. That's 64 terabytes of evidence in this case. I think that you're going to hear things in this case that are going to completely blow your mind. And I know that everybody's salivating to get this to trial. And what we all want to hear is that prosecution's opening statement. That's why this is going to take forever to get to trial, because of that 64 terabytes. 64 terabytes. It's impressive.
Is not, to
Impressive
me,
amount
a
of
significant
evidence.
trial issue.
By the way, talking about complicated legal issues in the Kohberger criminal case, I got to say, even in personal injury cases like lawsuits,
I got to fast forward here because we're not sponsored. Here we go.
Hound Law. All right, let's get back into it with Bryan Kohberger. So if, for example, we had a situation, and the way that I understand it is that the use of the DNA was not the end-all be-all, as you said, that they used that to arrest him. It was a tool that they then used to further investigate him, and we know the evidence about everything else. If it comes out that that was used as the sole way to arrest him, or the sole rationale to arrest him, could that be a legal issue? Is that the concern, one of the concerns from the defense, that this was the end all be all, that it wasn't just a tool, that it was used more than the prosecution is claiming right now? Let's first start there, if that's going to be an issue for Bryan Kohberger to exploit.
Okay. It's certainly an issue for the defense to look at. I'm not sure there's much law that supports it.
Okay.
Again, let me give you an analogy. Suppose somebody just called the police and said, yo, there's a father in Pennsylvania, check their DNA, and they check their DNA. However they got to dad, that's not something Bryan can complain about, because his personal rights were not violated. So that unless there's a state law that says anyone who's affected by a familial DNA search has what we call standing, the right to say, hey, I can object to this. I'm not sure where it goes. Is there an argument I haven't been made familiar with? Possibly. I can tell you that having researched this in the last 24 hours to refresh my memory on familial DNA after I got your kind invitation, there are, as I said, only a couple of states that limit it by law.
Well, first of all, you're not combing through the Bryan Kohberger documents on a regular basis without me even saying anything. First, big surprise there. But more importantly than that, just the way that I understand it, the FBI constructed this family tree through IgG, through investigative genetic genealogy. And then the FBI then sent that tip to local law enforcement about Bryan Kohberger. That's when they got the trash. And the defense wants to know specific details about how law enforcement used IgG to identify Kohberger as the suspect, which we just talked about. But it seems they may also want to know about testing that was done on other male DNA found at the scene. So now we're talking about potential other suspects that may have been overlooked by law enforcement. The fact that now...
Well, here's the thing that I feel about that. It's a college house. There was a bunch of people running in and out of that place all the time. Yes, it could be a potential suspect, but the way that I looked at it now, we're almost a year out from the investigation. I would think through all the organizations that have been involved in investigating this case, Moscow PD, we know the feds have been involved, private investigators, I'm pretty sure, probably some of the families doing their own investigating. I would have thought by now, if anybody else was involved in this case, it would have turned up. It would have turned up by now. But again, I'm not an expert, but I think this is just another thing, where all these other DNA had shown up. I mean, there's tons of kids coming in and out of that house. Tons of kids coming in and out of the house. How do we know it's just not, someone that was there months before that? We really don't know. But I would have thought by now, being almost a year out, a year and a couple of months, that something would have turned up. Another person would have turned up, combing through all that evidence, 64 terabytes of information. Something would have turned up.
Now the judge has handed over this material to the defense. Whether it's a win or not, it's definitely beneficial for them because now they have the materials to go through. It's a small win for them, I guess, in that sense. But the idea of now maybe using it to point the finger at somebody else, should we expect that?
There are two things you can do with evidence like that. If there's some other person's DNA at the scene, to the extent the police did not follow up, you have an argument of a flawed or incomplete investigation. And there's actually a U.S. Supreme Court case that says there's a right for the defense to say, wait a minute, you didn't check everything. Needless to say, if we can identify the source, say it's Jules Epstein, and it turns out Jules Epstein has a pattern of break-ins or something, it could lead the defense to say, we have an alternative suspect. So it's alternative suspect and or inadequate investigation based on what you're telling me.
And to be clear, also, the reason we're speculating a little bit about what the defense has or what they're going to do with it is because in the order from the judge, it says, quote, the specific material to be provided is set forth in a sealed order to protect the privacy of the IgG information.
Here's another thing, too. Why do you all think this is under seal? There's so many things that are under seal in this case that they won't let out. I mean, it leads to tell me that I think they got the right guy. And I'll tell you, if I was being accused of a quadruple homicide and I know I didn't do it, I probably wouldn't want to be sitting in jail right now. I'd be like, all right, let's get the trial. Let's get this over with. I want to exonerate myself. But what does the defense team keep doing? Delay, 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 delay. I don't know, man. If I'm an innocent guy and I'm sitting there and I'm going to be in fucking jail for the next 3, 4, 5 years waiting for trial, probably don't want to do that. Probably want to say, let's not delay this and let's get to trial so I can say I was not there. Then this guy gives his fucking beautiful, his beautiful alibi and says, oh, I was just driving around. I don't know. It kind of sounds a lot like what the fucking killer was doing that night, wouldn't you think? I was just driving around, like to take a little just casual drive, driving around. And this guy has no receipt that says, hey, I was at a gas station or I was eating food, or doesn't come forward and say I was with Jill Smith or Bobby Shumway. Nothing. No one. He wasn't with anybody. Just out driving around. Just a little casual drive. Take a little stroll. You know, like I said, sounds a lot like the fucking killer was doing that night. Just driving around. That's all he was doing. Taking a drive. I don't know. It's kind of what the killer was doing that night.
Including individuals on the family tree. Walk me through what the concern is there. Is it giving away the methodologies of law enforcement? Is it also protecting who on the family tree? Walk us through why there's privacy here.
Well, maybe it's just that in that family tree, there's cousin Jesse and cousin Jules who don't want to be known as the relatives of Bryan. So the judge is saying, okay, I got that. I'm going to give you the information, but I'm either going to white out the names of Jesse and Jules, or I'm telling you, defense lawyers, you can't disclose that further because Jesse and Jules have their own privacy interests, and I'm trying to balance Bryan's needs to to present a defense and third-party privacy. That's what I took that to mean.
And to be clear also about why there's so much talk about the DNA, because I've made this argument before. I think it is such a strong piece of evidence. Some would say the linchpin of the whole case. Some have said the smoking gun of the case.
What the hell did I just do?
Said.
Sorry,
A
StreamYard acting
collection
weird
of
tonight.
these can give nearly irrefutable evidence statistically of a person's identity because the likelihood of two unrelated people having the same number of repeated sequences in these regions becomes increasingly small as more regions are analyzed. And in the prosecution's filing in this case, they say, quote, the STR profile is at least 5.37 octillion times more likely to be seen if the defendant is the source than if an unrelated individual randomly.
Yeah, do you know how far that is? If there was put a distance on that, that is from, I think it was Earth to Saturn 6 times. 6 times. That's how you would measure that. 5.37 octillion times would be from Earth to Saturn 6 times.
Selected from the general population is the source.
That tells you
before, but I
it's
always look at the
Kohberger.
Jerry Burns case in Iowa, which we covered here on Law and Crime. This is a guy who was convicted of murdering Michelle Martinko back in the 1970s, a cold case for decades. There was no eyewitnesses, there was no surveillance, there was no text messages, there was no GPS data. They took crime scene DNA, blood, compared it to data from a genealogical database that got a pool of people, including Burns. They then collected a straw he discarded at a restaurant, and the DNA on the straw was
like
consistent with the blood on Martinko's dress. They were able to match his DNA. Now, this is a little bit different, right? I mean, I've interviewed other experts about this before, and they said, well, the DNA that's on the knife sheath may not be as strong as, for example, the Martinko case, because you might not be dealing with something like blood. Walk me through, if we can, Jules, the strength of this DNA on the knife sheath and how big of a role it's going to play and how much the defense can actually question its accuracy.
There are a couple of possibilities. One is they say they're wrong. Number two is they say it's somehow contaminated. Number three, innocent touch evidence. I go to a store, I pick up this knife sheath. Oh, this is interesting. No, I'm not going to buy it. Okay. I'm not suggesting the strength of any of those arguments, but the flip side is, of all the knife sheaths that happen to be found at the crime scene, is one that you just happen to touch at
Yeah.
a knife store, where we also know you're driving around that
Right.
night and so on and so forth. It seems to me to be a tremendously powerful piece of circumstantial evidence, assuming the DNA analysis was done well.
I mean, I've said it. The idea here that out of all places, not only that out of all the knife sheaths, forget about the DNA not on the doorknob, the DNA not on the carpet, the DNA not. Those could be explained away, right? I'm not saying this DNA is there, but it's not like we're talking about his DNA on all.
So I think there's some conundrum going up inside the chat about the cases that I follow. I follow many cases here. I don't just do Karen Reed. I've done Idaho 4 for almost a year. I've investigated and looked into the Chelsea Grimm case, which actually I got some new information here that I'll share at the end of the stream. I've started now dipping my toes back into Brian Walsh. We've done the Karen Reed case. I've been helping Turtle Boy. The channel will always evolve. I'm not going to always do Karen Reed, because that case at some point in probably the next, hopefully, couple days, it could be a couple weeks, could be a couple months, will conclude, and we will move on. And I will continue to advocate for other victims, just like Karen, things that she is going through in this case. But the channel will always evolve. I'm not going to do Karen Reed streams every night. I can't. There's just not enough material. I get it. Everybody's sourcing and wanting information in that case every single day. I cannot do that. I can't just base my channel off Karen Reed. I can't do it. My channel would literally end. Could end in a couple weeks. If Karen walks out of that courtroom a free woman, it could end in a couple months. If this goes to trial, which we don't want it to, which I don't think it's going to go to trial, but if it does, and Karen walks out a free woman, like we know that she will, when a jury of 12 exonerate her and say this is completely bullshit, but I have to move on, with my channel. I will continue to advocate and do other things and evolve. So, that's what I'm here for. And I don't know why you're so upset that I'm not streaming Karen Reed tonight. There's just not much more to talk about right now. It's been very quiet. So I will continue to do other cases and cases that are on my interest list. You can go to my homepage. I have playlists for all the cases I've invested a lot of time into. But we'll do Karen Reed. Of course we will. We will continue with that. I talked to Aiden tonight. We had a great chat. Him and I are going to be collabing on some things when he gets out. I'm very excited about that. And Turtle Boy will move on too. Channels on YouTube are only specific moments in time, and cases are only specific moments in time. The thing about a case is that we always get a beginning and an end. Most of the time, about 99.9% of the time. And when they conclude, they become part of us. It's a journey, it's a venture. And sometimes we get the result that we want, and sometimes we don't get the result we want. And, we can talk about those things after. But there will be points that we move on as creators and YouTubers. I mean, there's many other creators that do true crime and they follow different cases. I mean, Melanie Little, for an example, she follows different cases. The Lawyer does different cases all the time. I am a mixed bag channel. I will do other cases, and I've been reintroducing stuff that I haven't done in a while. And it's just it's what we do. It's what we do here on LTL. All right, let's keep going
all
through
these
this.
places in the house because it was a party house. People went there. Out of all places, it's on the knife sheath. What seems to be the housing for the potential murder weapon, even though it hasn't been recovered, it just is such a powerful piece of evidence. And I can
I mean, I've
understand.
made the commitment. I will not stop talking about Karen. I will not stop advocating for Karen until Karen Reed walks out of that courtroom a free woman, as she should be, because she did not do what the Commonwealth is saying that she did. I promise you that. But there are other things that I need to talk about, and there are other things that I need to bring awareness with too. And I have actually another case that I want to bring up that's been getting some very interesting attention in Rhode Island, and it's very close to where I live, and I will be bringing up and talking about that pretty soon too. It's actually a very bizarre case, but I don't want to tip the cap yet, or tip the hat. We'll save it, and I'll be doing that. I have to reach out to Sean. I know Sean's going to be on Melanie tomorrow night. I'd like to get Sean on the channel at some point. I have a stream that I have planned that I'd like to do with Sean. He was all in for it. I just have to call him and set up the time. But I want to give him some time of rest too. I mean, he's been on 4 or 5 different channels over the last week, and maybe we can plan it for next week. So, I'm working on that as well too. But right now we're Kohberger tonight. Okay, let's get back into this.
Understand why the defense wants to question in any which way. So we'll see. We'll see where this goes. I think the defense has been quite creative in their defenses. And so I'm going to be eager to see what comes from it. Jules Epstein, thank you so much for coming on. Always appreciate your insight.
All right, let's move to the next one. 3 shocking details. 3 shocking new details from the Bryan Kohberger hearing. Here we go.
By summer of 2025. I'm nervous telling you that.
A trial for Bryan Kohberger, the man charged with killing 4 University of Idaho students, might not start for more than a year until the summer of 2025.
I think if we're all being honest with ourselves, a trial in this case is going to happen. And the question is when.
This is just one of 3 big developments from the latest hearing in the case. I'm Anjanette Levy, and this is Crime Fix. We're actually on the road today covering another case, but we want to focus right now on that hearing for Bryan Kohberger that took place on Friday in Idaho and some of the shocking developments that came out of it. It's been nearly 13 months since Bryan Kohberger was arrested and charged with the murders of Maddie Mogen, Kelly Gonsalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle. Kohberger has said through a prior attorney that he hopes to be exonerated. He stood silent when asked to enter a plea last year. Judge John Judge entered a not guilty plea on his behalf, you'll recall. Now, at least one of the victims' families, the family of Kelly Gonsalves, wanted to leave Friday's hearing with a trial date. That didn't happen. The family posted on Facebook, "We have no words. #justice someday." Now, Judge Judge, of course, wants to keep this case moving. That's part of his job, but it's been at a standstill. He recently ordered prosecutors to turn over some genetic genealogy information to the defense, and that has been done. That was a big win for the defense. That usually doesn't happen with that type of information, this genetic genealogy stuff. Prosecutors, of course, want the trial scheduled for this June, the summer of 2024, because the schools in Moscow, Idaho are out, including the University of Idaho.
It should be done during the summertime. And I say that because right across the street there is Moscow High School that shares parking all around the courthouse with everybody else who's going to have an interest in this case and being here. And we've already encountered the conflict between those interests. We can't sustain that for weeks and weeks on end. That's just not fair to the students. It's not fair to the school district. It's not fair to the media. It's not fair to anybody. The other factor is, as your honor knows, we have 2 universities, part of our community. And during the academic year, we have graduations, we have numerous sporting events and other university-related events that essentially consume every available hotel or motel room within miles.
But Kohberger's lead attorney, Ann Taylor, doesn't believe she'll be ready for trial before the summer of 2025, and maybe not even then. Prosecutors have said they believe this trial will take 6 weeks, but the defense says it will take much longer than that. They believe this trial could take between 12 and 15 weeks.
This is, as everybody said today, a very complicated case. And I want to talk a little bit about what drives both our request no sooner than summer of 2025 And I say that with fear, Your Honor. There are a lot of things that we have to still do. I want the court and counsel to know that we haven't sat around waiting for a scheduling conference to begin doing those things. We have been on this case and active and seeking discovery and reviewing discovery, meeting with experts and working the case since the day we were assigned this case. So with that said, there's still plenty to do.
The defense also plans to file a change of venue motion, meaning that they want the trial moved out of Latah County. Latah County has a population of more than 37,000 people, and that's a very small jury pool, especially.
I think the thing that we have to look at in cases is this, okay? We understand what clearly happened in Karen's case. I think we all understand that. But I don't think that we have to look at every single case that evidence has been planted in every fucking single case that comes up. I mean, to me, the Idaho 4 case, to me, in my opinion, is pretty self-explanatory of what happened. When I look at Karen Reed's case, I think it's pretty self-explanatory what happened. You know, there's obvious signs, I mean, beyond a reasonable doubt, that things have been planted in that case to frame Karen Reed. To me, when I look at the totality of what I know as far as the evidence in the Idaho 4 case, to my opinion, it adds up that Bryan Kohberger should be the person that stands accused right now of this crime. There are 100, there are people in this chat that may disagree with me. They go back, they look at a grub truck. I mean, there's fucking people that are still talking about the grub truck video. Who cares? I think this is pretty, I need to do this. Look at me, children. Okay, I might have to hypnotize you. I might have to hypnotize you into this. I don't know. Or I have to wake you up somehow. Okay, it's very simple. Very, very simple. Okay, I'm going to help you now. I'm going to help you. You have to explain for a knife sheath that has this man's DNA on it, that is in bed with 2 dead girls. How did it get there? How did it get there? Are you going to go back and say, oh, well, the police a year ago somehow got him, scratched him, kept his DNA in a cryonically sealed environment under freezing temperatures, and then hatched it one day and painted it on the knife sheath and went in there and planted it on the bed? Probably impossible. Probably impossible. But to me, my opinion, I think Bryan Kohberger is right where he should be. That's my opinion. Some people might agree, some people might not agree. But you can't go into every single case and go, oh yeah, they were framed. They were framed. I think it's very clear in Karen's case what happened. I think it's very, very clear what happened. Very clear.
Especially when you're talking
This case,
about a case.
I think it's
as
very
big as
clear
this
what
one.
happened.
Now, we've seen 2 other high-profile cases moved in Idaho recently. The trials of Lori Vallow Daybell and her husband, Chad Daybell. Chad's trial will be held in Ada County, that's the Boise area, just like Lori's was. So things are moving along very.
And here's the thing, too, and I'm going to stop it and add this. We haven't heard, and I feel like Trump right now, we haven't heard all of the evidence in this case. It's just the tip of the iceberg. I'm going to tell you, there are going to be tons of things that floor you when this gets to trial. That will floor you when this gets to trial. Believe me, there's a ton of evidence on this guy. I'm pretty sure of that. I mean, just look at all the motions for discovery in this case. 64 terabytes of information. Just think about that, the totality of what I read, what just 1 terabyte can hold. Now, times that 64 times.
Slowly in this case, and you can see that the prosecutors and the Gonsalves family are frustrated. There was one pretty shocking moment to me on Friday, and that was the fact that Ann Taylor said she still doesn't know how law enforcement landed on her client as a suspect.
And the clear picture that I'm concerned about is the state's pathway of how Bryan Kohberger comes to their attention and is identified. I've read that PC affidavit over and over and over again, and I'm not sure. Over a year into this case and everything I've read, and I've spoken with our team, we're not sure how the state decides on Bryan Kohberger. I know different
I think it's pretty
pieces,
clear.
but I don't know where they fit together. And the more
Plain
work I
dumb.
do, the less I know about how they fit together.
Just the very thought of setting a trial date so far into the future was disappointing, to say the least, to Judge.
I'm not going to just let it hang for too long.
Yeah, that's
but
crazy. I mean, that's absolutely crazy. That dude came out and confessed. 1000% confessed. 1000% confessed.
it's really hard for me right now to set something in 2025, even though that might be just the reality. And I know that there's lots of other issues.
There you go, right there. Scott, Karen Reed is a once-in-a-lifetime crazy cover-up, perfect storm of corruption. 99% of the cases are not all corrupt and done correctly. Murder trials, I mean, yeah, there are setups, but not unalives.
To be addressed. My heart goes out to the victims. I can't even imagine the pain, the grief, because you can't really go forward with your life.
That's what's been said, Steph.
Hanging over your head. So
We'll get back to Crime Fix in just a sec, but first, I want to tell you about our
Move on from this sponsor because we're not sponsored. Here we go.
that state. I talked with him about a number of issues related to this case, including the defense saying they may not be ready for trial until the summer of 2025.
This defense team is working really hard to slow down this trial in the hopes that the anger, the bitterness in this community may subside a little before they have to pick a jury. They're doing a lot of things that are kind of really very low chance passes, if you will. The one that struck me in this hearing was they're asking to change the standard for grand juries from probable cause to beyond a reasonable doubt. That's nuts. The judge denied it, but now moving it back into next summer, not this summer, but next summer, just the latest of their low chance, but very important to them tactics.
Yeah, the indictment thing, that's been kind of a non-starter the whole time. I mean, it was very creative. We said that from the beginning, and then the judge said it was creative. They keep citing the Idaho Constitution. However, we all know that probable cause is the standard in grand juries. They wanted a preliminary hearing. That's just what it was. That's what they wanted. Mark, another thing here, there's a massive amount of discovery in this case. They said 51 terabytes they've received so far, and we know how much
it's been a little while.
that is. I mean, it's tons of information. And it reminds me of the Pike County case.
I come corrected. It's 51 terabytes. Again, I haven't mulled over this case in a while. I was close, 64. I don't know. Maybe I just said 64 because 64 bits of, when you get a computer, I think you can get 64, or an iPhone. It goes 30. What does it go? 16, 32, 64. Do they go 16? I think it goes 16, or it used to do 8, 16, 32, 64, 120. That's probably where I got it from.
And I bring up that case, the Pike County Massacre case in Ohio, because you had multiple victims in that case. In that case, 8. In this case, you have 4. That case is different, though, because you had 4 defendants. But still, the first trial in that case, we had COVID as a delay. But the first trial in that case didn't start for years and years after the arrest. The arrests were in November of 2018. Trial started in summer of 2023. So that was a 5-year delay factoring in COVID. So is this really that much of a delay? The judge obviously is perturbed. He wants to keep the train on the tracks and keep this thing moving, but it's a lot of information to go through.
It is. Now, in Pike County, there were multiple crime scenes. It was multiple defendants and multiple conspiracies. And so it was a much more intertwined case. 51 terabytes is a lot, but 2 things to remember. First of all, some of that is probably the defendant's own devices that the state of Idaho has taken to analyze. And so they're giving back the defendant that which he already knows what's there. Secondly, the prosecution is ready to move forward. And remember, they're the ones who have the burden of proof. They've got to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that each and every element of these crimes occurred. And so if anybody should be worried about whether or not they're going to be prepared for trial, it's the prosecution, who also has to know everything on those 51 terabytes of discovery.
9,000 tips. It was more than 9,000 tips they said they received in this case. So they turned all of that information over to the defense. The defense is saying, look, we have to do mitigation and we're required to go back 3 generations, because if there is a conviction, then we go to the penalty phase and we have to basically know his life story to present information to the jury. Is some of this stalling, or is some of this just like, wow, this is a huge case and maybe they're in over their heads a little bit? I mean, what is the feeling you get from watching the hearing the other day?
The Constitution does not require a perfect trial, and it does not require to have a massive army of defense lawyers working on it full time for years on end. We simply need to have a fair trial. Everyone deserves a fair trial. And the mitigation phase has grown from what it was originally intended to be, from just giving the jury the ability to weigh some of the aggravating and mitigating circumstances.
So Lee says, hello, Brian. When they first started saying how much he wasn't at like 85 terabytes with video and paperwork. No, I think it was always 51. I just screwed up the number tonight. It's been a little while. I'm going to tell you right now, Carrie, I have the full Bryan Kohberger file. I started to get into it. We did the FOIA request. I started releasing the videos. I can 100% confirm right now, and I can show you, I have the whole file. There is not one mention of Bryan Kohberger being involved in the Idaho 4 case. It would have came out in the investigation that they had. I have the full case file. I really wish people would stop saying that. He is not involved in this. We have debunked that, and that rumor needs to stop. This was a veteran that had a lot of issues, a lot of mental issues, and unfortunately was caught up in a terrible situation that he was sadly unalived in. And I've thumbed through the full case file. I have it. And, it's something in the future that I will probably continue to release. We still have all the body cam footage from that day, still compiling it and putting together. And when I started to release it, it just really wasn't any interest in it, which was really sad. But we have confirmed, through the reports. I have the full case file. I can show you. Bryan Kohberger is not involved in the Idaho 4 murders. 1,000%. Is the case file. I have the whole case file. It's a long case file. Huge case file. Is over 75 pages to go through. And there's not one mention in this case file that he has been involved in the Idaho murders. Again, I've done some lives on it. Just people were not interested in it. Maybe it's something that I delve back into at some point and continue to release. Like I said, I do have the body cam footage. I started releasing some of it, but people just weren't really interested in seeing it. So, all right, we'll keep playing through this.
So now we have to take everything about the defendant and try to make the jury feel sorry about the defendant and what sort of life they had. That's really never been the purpose of the mitigation phase, but that's what it's become in the last few decades.
The defense also says they believe this will be a 12 to 15 week trial, not the 6-week trial that the prosecution envisions. Do you think that this needs to be a 12 to 15 week trial? We have one crime scene, as you mentioned, but 4 victims, and both sides keep calling it a complicated and complex case. When you boil down to it, could it really be that complicated and complex? When I say that, because they're saying, look, we have this guy's DNA on a knife sheath. We have, his car on video. We have this, we have that. I mean, they're acting like they've got all this information that clearly says this is the guy.
Once again, the prosecution is the one with the harder case because the prosecution has the burden of proof. That includes proving that this defendant was at this crime scene and committed these murders. For the defense to say they need twice or even 3 times the amount of time that the prosecution is estimating suggests to me that they think they're going to have more witnesses than the prosecution. I can't imagine that's true. Perhaps they've got an alibi witness or two. That'd be unusual in the middle of the night, but okay. They're certainly going to question by cross-examination all of the state's witnesses. That's normal, but you're not
no
going to
problem,
double
Gary.
and triple and quadruple the time of direct examination. If you do, you're not a very good
I
cross-examiner.
think Bryan Kohberger, just needs to be let alone. And I've said that a little while now. Like I said, thumbing through that whole case file, it's very clear. I mean, it's very disturbing. What happened to Brent is very. I think there needs to be investigation in that. It's very disturbing with a lot of the language that he used that night. It's some very harsh language that I didn't enjoy. Censor reading it. The particular use of the N-word, that was extremely uncomfortable reading through how many times that he said it that day. I'm not here to judge Bryan Kohberger in that way. I just present the information and you all can make your determinations on that. And I've said that before, reading through that case file. Is very disturbing. It was a very disturbing night. And I've thought about, like I said, going back to it. But it's a lot. It's a lot to get into. There's a lot to get into. There's a lot of racial language that was used and stuff that I'm just not comfortable reading and going through. So I don't know. It may be something that I just leave alone and not go back to. I haven't made my determination on it yet.
It's hard to see what would make the trial as long as they're suggesting.
It was interesting when they said that. They also said there's about 400 witnesses, and they said they've basically talked to maybe 10% of those, and people don't want to talk to them, which, I can understand people not wanting to get involved. But it's very, wow, we know this is a big case. And I feel like whenever we get these huge cases like this, everybody goes in thinking, okay, we're going to try this case. And then there are always these delays. But in this case specifically, Mark, there hasn't been one death penalty motion filed. There hasn't been one motion to suppress. I mean, I haven't seen one motion that wasn't like, oh, we're trying to get the indictment thrown out, which is a fool's errand, in my opinion. I mean, I give them credit for trying to help their client out in that respect. But when have you ever seen a grand jury indictment tossed out? That doesn't happen.
No, it's very rare. This defense team has very little to work with. The prosecution has really made a very strong case. Defense team knows that. As a result, they are just flailing around with what I think are ridiculous arguments. Give the judge credit trying to be reasonable and trying to do this in as fair way as possible. But the judge has the ultimate decision of when the trial is and what comes in. The notion of them not being able to talk to all the witnesses, there is no.
And there's tons more footage that I haven't even gone through or uploaded. We have everything. I think it's just going to be something that I leave alone, and I'm not really comfortable doing it because knowing the situation, the language that was used, it's just really something I don't want to get into. I don't feel comfortable doing it at this point. But I'm sure there's other people that are FOIA requesting it or have done it. I don't know. I mean, I've looked through the file. It doesn't indicate him in being involved in this at all. So I would probably just leave it at that. I think it was just a strange situation of what happened around the certain circumstances of this case. But Bryan Kohberger has nothing to do with the Idaho 4 case We need to just leave it at that.
No obligation for prosecution witnesses to talk to defense. That's typical. And once again, there won't be 400 witnesses called. This comes down to some key witnesses, some key evidence. You could try this case in a month, and both sides could have it fair.
Interesting. Are you surprised that there haven't been any other motions filed, though? Not even the change of venue. I mean, the change of venue, I feel like those are typically filed really quickly. And there's this huge restrictive gag order in this case, and everything's filed under seal. It just drives me nuts. But, the change of venue motion, they could file that. I mean, those are pretty routine in these big cases.
Thanks, Nessa.
You file
Appreciate it.
that, and
Thank
you're
you for
just like, look at
subscribing.
all this
Thank you.
massive media coverage.
that
I mean,
like
they used to
button.
bring, I remember the defense attorneys used to bring the bankers boxes into court full of news stories and stuff. They'd subpoena all this stuff. They're like, well, this is going to take a lot of work. Well, I think it's pretty clear that you can just go on the internet and find I could probably spend an afternoon just finding stuff that showed hey, look at all this media coverage. So that change of venue motion still hasn't even been filed.
That's typically done pretty close in time to a gag order. The problem the defense has is that although this is very well known in this particular county, it's very well known throughout the state of Idaho. I don't know that you could even get outside the state and have people who don't know about this case. That's not the standard. The standard is whether jurors are able to set aside what they know and make their decision based on the facts of the case. And that's a simple voir dire exercise, talking to the jurors, making sure each side is only able to pick those who can properly set aside any feelings they may have.
Any final thoughts, Mark?
It's going to be an interesting case. We don't know a lot because so much is done under seal. The defense is doing the best it can, but it seems unreasonable to push the trial back as far as they're suggesting.
Really?
All right, we're going to drop this. I got one more, and then we're going to get out of here. All right, let's go to Vinnie Politan, our favorite. Vinny. Gray Hughes Investigates joins Vinnie Politan with some new insight to the leaked surveillance video, and Gray Hughes does a great job. Let's see this.
Prosecutors need to bring their A game, need to be able to lock down the timeline, lock down this defendant. One way they're going to do it, or attempt to do it, is through surveillance video. And joining me tonight from Portland, Oregon, podcaster Gray Hughes, who you can watch on YouTube at Gray Hughes Investigates. Make sure you check it out after this program tonight. Check out his channel. It's pretty amazing, the in-depth investigations he's done on this case and on many of the other big true crime cases. So, Gray, you've done some incredible work here involving a surveillance video from that night. Before we get to it, though, I just want to set things up for the folks at home so they're prepared for
I also want to give a shout out to the mob crew. I think it's Steve. He's done a phenomenal job with this video as well. And I would direct people over to the mob crew as well. It's a huge channel and does a lot of Kohberger stuff and does some amazing presentations. I fucking love watching his stuff. And he kind of broke this video down too, but Gray does a great rendition of it here and breaking it down. It's very good. Sacco and Vanzetti, that's right. I hope he ain't gonna say it here, but anything with Karen Reed, he always brings it up. All right, here we go.
What they're going to see, and I think you agree with me that it all starts with the affidavit that's been obtained by all of us. So let's take a look at that. The affidavit videos. This is key. Videos obtained from the King Road neighborhood showed multiple sightings of the suspect vehicle number 1. They're saying that's the defendant, starting at 3:29 a.m., ending at 4:20 a.m.
Pretty self-explanatory.
Suspect vehicle 1 makes an initial 3 passes by the 1122 King Road residence and then leaves via Walenta Drive, okay? Suspect vehicle 1 can be seen entering the area a 4th time. And this is the significant time at approximately 4:04 a.m. It can be seen driving eastbound on King Road, stopping.
I think I said Steve because I'm thinking about Steve Gonsalves, but thank you.
Turning around in front of 500 Queen Road, number 52, and then driving back westbound on King Road. When Vehicle 1 is in front of the King Road residence. It appeared to unsuccessfully attempt to park or turn around in the road. The vehicle then continued to the intersection of Queen Road and King Road, where it can be seen completing a 3-point turn and then driving eastbound again down Queen Road. Suspect vehicles next seen departing the area of the King Road residence at approximately 4:20 a.m. That's establishing our timeline. Let me show you on the screen what the video is going to look like from this surveillance. And you see the timestamp on there. That's significant, 11:13. This piece of the video from 3:31, 3 seconds a.m. Now, let me show you the map of the route that the suspect here may have taken. Take a look at the loop. You can see where the crime scene is. That's the house. The red is this looping way you can get around the neighborhood, and then you've got to go in the neighborhood. Okay? That's significant. Now let me show you where the security camera footage you're going to see is from. So, points of interest. Crime scene is the house. 500 Queen, number 52 is in like an apartment where there's a turnaround. And then you've got 1330 Linda Lane security camera. That is the significant positioning of the camera, and the red is the route that we believe the suspect vehicle takes. All right, great. Did I get all of that correct?
You nailed it.
Okay, good.
Absolutely perfect.
Well, folks should know that we were talking earlier today, and that's the only reason I'm getting all of this right. Okay, great. Let's do this. Let's put up the first video, and I'll let you take over. I think this is the first one where you're in your car driving part of the path. So tell us what we're watching.
Yeah, this is 500 Queen Road. The main building is right here on the right. And this is what it looked like from the driver of the white Elantra's point of view, driving back here. And this is what it looks like. And then you take a right, and now I switch it over to daylight here so you can just get a better view of it. And then right back there to the left is where the camera is on that building over there. And this is that little space. And right here's some surveillance footage at 3:31. That was a little short clip there, but it shows that vehicle making this exact route right here. And then it comes around, and look where this ends up at. Each time it made
Right
this
in
loop.
back of the house.
At 3:31, you take a right here, and you could just park right here on this corner,
Right
and you
to
can
the
see
right.
right into Madison Mogan's
Maddie Mogan.
bedroom right there.
Oh, wow.
But
On the top right
unfortunately-
part of the screen there.
And here, this is what we talked about at the beginning. Tearing that house down is not going to give the jury the opportunity to walk that route and look. Tearing that house down now will not give the jury the opportunity to go do this, to walk that route and look. We can look right into Madison Mogan's bedroom, right from that angle. That house is now gone.
That was the
Big mistake. They tore that house down.
Well,
My opinion.
So
Wow.
it's on the left side of the screen, it's right there. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now let's take a look at the next piece of video. This is pass number 2, I believe, at
This is
3:38.
the second. Exactly. This is the second of the 3 initial passes. So at 3:38, you can see the light as it's coming down that narrow corridor that I was driving on. And then you'll see the lights show up, and then it comes around the corner, and it does the exact same thing again. And each time it leaves on Willanta Drive and does that loop all the way around. But between loop number 2 and 3, however, there might be a different route that he took because there's a 17-minute gap instead of 8.
So as you're doing all this and you had driven the route, are the times matching up for you?
Oh, absolutely perfectly. I even did it on live streams. I go, everybody right now, pretend it's this time. And we drive around and it's like, boom. I mean, exactly everything lined up.
All right, let's move ahead now to 3:56 and 45 seconds.
And this is the third pass. So again, there's like a 17-minute gap in that one. It's possible it
Terry.
showed up at a mobile gas station because there's a 3:45 image of perhaps a white Elantra there, but we don't have that in this show tonight. So here it comes around doing the exact same thing again. And this is interesting because 3:57 is right around the time that perhaps a DoorDash delivery was made, around 4. I think it might be a little bit before that, though. And I think Each time he goes behind there, though, he stops
to slow the
and
case
probably
down,
waits
Rick.
for a few minutes watching through.
To slow the case down, because they know they have the goods on this guy. So what do we need to do? Slow it down. Slow it down. Drag this out. Look for a way, a possible way or angle to try to get this guy off. In my opinion, dead to rights. Nailed. This guy totally did it.
Through the window to see if the lights are going to turn off. This is my opinion. And when the lights aren't off yet, he drives away to kill more time
My opinion.
without sitting there and then comes back again. That's my opinion.
Now, you were there. So if the DoorDash driver shows up, they're not going to be going past this particular camera.
No, they would just be right. They would go in front of the 1112 King Road camera, but they would just probably pull into the front parking lot of 1122 King Road. And see on that map right there, right above crime scene, just to the northwest of that is that one building right there. That is the 1122 King Road, 1112 King Road camera.
Okay, so when this case goes to trial for prosecutors, obviously they can have this surveillance video, but they'll have other video from other cameras along the way to try to tie this all together. But again, from you comparing these videos to that affidavit, to driving it yourself, things are matching up pretty consistently for you.
Yeah, it matches up absolutely perfectly. These are the initial 3 passes that we just discussed. And then I guess we'll be showing, there's like on the 4th pass, there's an aborted pass, and then it turns around and then it finally finishes it. So we'll see that here in a second.
So that's the one that turns around. Let's take a look.
Yeah. So this is at 4:05, and on the affidavit, it said it shows up in the area at 4:04, which is
I mean, I base my guilt on just all the information that's been out there. I mean, you know, I've read through the PCA multiple times. Seems pretty clear cut, you know, and all the evidence that's been talked about and all the evidence that's been kind of put out there. I mean, we've read through all of the court documents that have been put out there, and I mean, when you're compiling that list and going through it and looking at the things that they're looking for, and you know, it's connecting a lot of the dots. I don't know, it just kind of adds up. This guy, you know, has no alibi. Said that he was just out driving around. His DNA is on a knife sheath where it shouldn't be anywhere in this home, next to 2 dead girls in a bed that are all sliced up and killed. 2 other people down on the lower floor killed. I mean, I don't know. Little strange. Just my opinion.
On Taylor Avenue, and it comes around, and then at 4:05 and it was 33 seconds or so, it comes back here, and then it turns around right here, right in front of.
You got to tell me, out of all the cases that you've ever watched or ever paid attention to in your entire life, you never had an opinion before it went to court? I find that a little weird, because usually true crimers or people that follow true crime usually have an opinion one way or another in most cases.
Queen Road, 500 Queen Road, number 52. It's exactly what it says on the probable cause affidavit. So right here, it's turning around. You can actually see the car right underneath the AM.
Right,
there,
yeah.
backing up.
Pretty clear.
Yeah, it's clear. And I've actually done an overlay with
it looks like kind of like a white Hyundai
Elantra.
Elantra.
The window shape is exactly the same.
Yeah.
So what's going? This is a turnaround, but what's going on here? Obviously, we're not inside the head of the driver of this car, but this is different than the other passes.
Yeah. So this one, you wonder, when he drove by, did he see something that was concerning, and he wanted to go back and check it? And he was about to turn around or park right in front of 1122 King Road. That's the house where the murders happened. But he didn't do that, and then he continued on to Queen and King, and now look at, he's coming back. Oh, this, I guess we're repeating that part.
Yeah, this is the repeat of, just so folks can see it again, because this is different than the other passes, and here you get the best look at the vehicle. Again, as you said, right under where it says AM, that is potentially the killer's car here.
Yeah, and amazingly, Bryan Kohberger owned a 2015 white Elantra.
White Elantra. All right, now let's get to the final pass. Again, the timing here is very significant as well as we move to the next video, starting at 4:07.
Right, so he did the 3-point turn at Queen and King. Now he's actually going quite a bit faster. I timed these. He's really hustling. It's almost like he noticed something. It's his time now. He's going to get there, and he comes around the corner. And look what time it is, 4:07 and 41 seconds or so. I think he parked at 4:08, all right? And then at 4:08, probably exits the vehicle sometime after that. And then at 4:20, it leaves at a high rate of speed. But interestingly, in between 4:08 and 4:20, a knife sheath was left inside the house on Madison Mogen's bed.
Kind of interesting.
That contained the DNA of Bryan Kohberger, who also drives a 2015
white Hyundai Elantra.
And this is exactly how prosecutors have to lay this out for the jury.
It's cool because the mob crew actually breaks this down as well and times it all out, and you can actually hear the squealing tires leaving the scene that night. You got to go over and watch that video. It's a very, very interesting video. We're going to wrap this up in about 2 minutes.
Because you don't have a confession here. You don't have you have a witness who sees someone in a mask. I don't think the surviving witness can significantly identify the person by the face because of the covering. But this is the type of evidence that a jury understands and then kind of shifts it onto the defendant to try to explain it. Or are they going to say it wasn't me behind the wheel of the car? Now, 4:08 to 4:20 is the window of time where everyone believes the murders took place. The one thing you said I found very significant, though, that he was moving quicker. Whoever's driving that car was driving quicker in that last final pass towards the house. Adrenaline is rushing. It's go time. To me, that would resonate with the jury as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's exactly what was happening. It's almost
not confirmed yet, Dave.
Like 60% faster. I mean, it's really
Probably.
hustling. If you watch the other ones, he kind of trickles around.
But all the geofencing is going to come into, and it's so ironic that his phone gets turned off or puts into airplane mode when all of this goes down when he's in the area. Very interesting.
Watches, but that one is just boom. He's going to park. He saw that maybe the lights were off. He wasn't waiting anymore, and then bolted down the bank through the sliding glass door. And I think, likely probably went to Madison Mogen's room first.
Right.
That's my opinion, but
And again, you've been there where he's parking very close to the home, and you're going to go, it's not the front door. You're going down a hill, sort of the side, because the house was built into like the side of a hill.
And not completely confirmed on that yet, Dave. We don't know. A lot of this stuff has been under seal. I'm sure you could go look at white Hyundai Elantra 2015 and check all that out. But he did have a phone on him. It went into airplane mode. But the problem is that we figured out, and you can go back and watch a stream, that his phone touched the Wi-Fi and a Bluetooth speaker that night. At the house. We don't know if it was specifically at that house. We know that his Wi-Fi touched that night, but the Bluetooth speaker, we're not too sure if it happened on the night of the murders or it was prior to the murders. And I did a stream about that. It's extremely, extremely interesting stream. It's something that was kind of like an aha moment for us, something that we passed by after doing this case for almost a year. We went and looked at this Bluetooth and it was like, wow. And the reason we came to that determination was this. Kaylee Gonsalves' family about a month ago came out in an interview and talked about trying to get back Kaylee's phone, and law enforcement still had her phone. He said it was just really weird that they had her phone, they had a Bluetooth speaker, and I went, wait a minute. Why would law enforcement keep a Bluetooth speaker? So we started doing some research into that, and we figured out how Bluetooth works. And if you have your Bluetooth on, what Bluetooth is trying to do when you have it on your phone is if you walk into a room and you have Bluetooth devices that are on, which most likely a college student would leave a Bluetooth speaker on because they're partying all the time, and they would probably want to just walk in, connect their phone and play music or maybe it's an Alexa, whatever it is. But what happens is when you have your Bluetooth on in your phone, your Bluetooth is constantly trying to reach out to something to connect to. So what we came to determination, and I had someone that was a ex Verizon worker, I think 8 years of experience, Kimmy, and I think she's in the chat tonight. She came on my live and talked about how all Bluetooth works. It was a very interesting stream. We come to the determination that he had to get close enough to that house. I think it was within 32 feet for his phone to ping off that Bluetooth. So at some point, his phone made a connection to that Bluetooth because he probably had his Wi-Fi on his Bluetooth. I'll give you a prime example right now. If I open my phone and I have my Wi-Fi on and my Bluetooth right now, I'll just show you this. Here's a list of all the Wi-Fi devices my phone is trying to connect to right now. It's pinging those devices. It's trying to make that connection. Here's another example. I'll just show you my Bluetooth. Okay, these are all the devices my phone is trying to connect to Bluetooth right now. So, and the funny thing about it is when we went back, we looked at some old footage back from August, and they got close enough to the slider, and guess what? Right inside that door, there was a Bluetooth speaker. So it may have led us to believe the night that he went there, and in my opinion, committed these murders, that possibly his phone connected that night, or better yet, when he was caught down there 12 times before, which we believe he was stalking these girls in that home, he got close enough to that home to peek in, and guess what? This moron forgot to turn off his phone or his Bluetooth or put it into any type of mode, like airplane mode, and his Bluetooth made a connection to that speaker and probably stored that information or stored it on his phone, because that's what Bluetooth will do. It will store the devices that it's trying to connect with or has connected with. It's a great stream. I urge everybody to go back and watch it. If you're interested in that stream, I will drop the link for it just as this live comes to an end. We've got about another 50 seconds. I'm going to wrap this one up.
Exactly. Yeah. Just right up there to the left there is where you would park. Kind of where that truck is, a little bit further up on the left there.
Yep.
You can see it right back behind there. I did a 360-degree video where, have you seen those where you can look around in all directions?
Yes.
And so it's kind of interesting when you place it up there, you can just look around and see all the angles that he would be seeing. Like right there, that's almost where you'd be parking, just to the left a little bit. You can see right through that window.
Unbelievable. Gray Hughes. It's Gray Hughes Investigates on YouTube. You go
Gray's
on
good.
there.
Great channel.
In-depth investigations like this, day after day. Gray, thank you so much. Appreciate your.
All right, I'm going to bunk out of that. And of course, now we know that they filed for a change of venue. Again, to slow this down, not going to talk too much about it. I'm sure you all know about that. But again, Bryan Kohberger asked court for change of venue after delays in Idaho student murders. So here we are. I'll drop that link to the Bluetooth speaker stream if you want to watch that. Super, super interesting. I think you should go back and watch it. It was a great kind of discovery and aha moment. That's something that we never even thought about in the Idaho case. I was like, holy shit, this is it. And it was a really good stream. So what we're going to do here is wrap this one up. I appreciate everybody coming in and watching the Idaho 4 stream with us. Again, we do many, many cases here, just not Karen Reed. I've done many cases on this channel for the past year, and I will continue to dive into interesting cases like this. I actually have some other things planned, ready to go. I just got to get them together. And again, I'm trying to get, for my Karen Reed fans here, or followers, not fans, but Karen Reed supporters. I don't say fans. I'm trying to get Sean on my show, and I'm working on that, and should be possibly in the next week or so. I know he's going to be on Melanie Little tomorrow, and I think that's going to be a great show. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all the subscribers that have popped in. I appreciate everybody being here. If you're just walking in right now, go back and watch the replay, and we'll continue to do some Idaho streams. I mean, again, there's really not much that we're going to ponder over here the next year unless something majorly breaks. And if we get some major breaks in that case, I will bring this back around. But again, right now, it's just not really my primary focus. I think we've gotten to the point of where it can only really be right now. I don't want to keep beating this in with a I guess, a dead horse. But we will, we'll circle back around. I got some other things planned soon, but everybody have an amazing night. It's late. I'm tired. I want to get some rest. I'll see you guys all back here soon, guys and ladies. I always forget to say ladies. And I appreciate it. And I'll talk to you all soon. Everybody have a great night. I'm gonna hit the outro and take care. Bye.
True crime, we going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, exposed the hidden and mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie. Getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. True crime, unraveling the web of evil. No stone left unturned. We dive into the crime. Yeah, we digging up the dirt, bringing justice to the crime. LTL True Crime, unveiling dark realities of the crime. Unraveling the web of evil. No stone left unturned. We dive into the crime. Yeah, we digging up the dirt, bringing justice to the crime. LTL True Crime, unveiling